I was conceived at a solitary meditation retreat center. My mom was driving my dad, who couldn't drive. They stopped at Dorje Kunzang, DKD. She dropped him off, but it started snowing. There was a warm cabin in there with a fire, vodka, and 9 months later, one day short of 9 months later, July 15th, 1974, my parents got married. July 16th, 1974, I was born. My dad was big and sweet and feisty, to put it in a politically correct, vague way, with a overenthusiasm for alcohol. He read Superman comics to me, played baseball with me, tried to teach me a love for the opera, beat my mother, and then was gone. And I had no father figure in my life. My mother never made much money, didn't really care about it much. We lived in a simple house. But she took care to set me up with father figures. There was a tall, handsome guy who came by and picked me up and took me to the YMCA and played basketball with me until I could barely move. It was super fun. He was really cool. I don't remember his name at all. And there were dozens of them. There's probably a few in this room. Father figures. I don't have time to wait for these laughter cycles to end, so stop enjoying this. It's sad. So, the ultimate father figure I had, which would probably be no surprise to at least the wing section over here, his name was Willie. And I remember I was sergeant major at a camp that some of you may have heard of, up in a land some of you may have heard of. And I was really good with the children. I was so good with them. I really connected with them. I was probably the best at connecting with them. This little girl, this, don't worry, there's a punchline to that. And the punchline is Willie. There was a little girl who, she was 10. It was her first time away from her parents, and she was crying. And I really was connecting with her, helping her stay. And I said, just being reasonable. If it doesn't work, you can leave. But really, 2 feet in, you can do this. People will love you. And, she stuck around for a few days. And then Willie heard what was going on. He took me up the hill. And I don't remember exactly the tone of his voice. I don't think he yelled at me, but suffice to say, I cried, I was heartbroken, I was a mess. He tore me apart, basically, because I had given this young girl the option of leaving. And so in her mind, no matter how hard she might try to stay, she had a way out. And sure enough, the next day she left, and that was my fault. Willie broke my heart again and again. Samsaric father figures or fathers teach us to be tough and macho, ideally straight, all that stuff. I remember going for a ride with my dad one weekend when I think Elle Macpherson was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and I was talking about how hot she was. And my father, who almost never saw me and didn't really care about my life in any way that was perceptible to young me, said, "Oh, I'm so relieved you're not gay." As if the wussification of growing up in a Buddhist community raised by a mom was somehow kind of a problem or a thing at all. So, to conclude, I remember finally finding my family, in a sense. It's the refuge vow. You formally take on a new family, and I did that at it was called Dorje Zong at the time. Some of you may know it. It's a big Buddhist building, and we were on the 3rd story with the regent, and he was giving a talk to a huge crowd, and I was really young, like too young to be taking refuge. I was probably 8 or 9. All I had was a vague sense of being proud of what I was about to do, and he gave a talk. This is how children get involved in cults or, becoming fans of the Broncos, things like that. They have no idea what they're in for. I remember the regent took me aside after the talk and painstakingly went through what he had talked about and wanted to make sure that I had understood what I was getting into. And unfortunately, in retrospect, I nodded yes at the time. And I was walked out of the refuge ceremony by Don Szymanski, who was another one of my amazing father figures. He had brought me up with the Kudo Zen archery. I was a prodigy, really good at that, until I got bored of it and got into video games. There was that arcade on Pearl Street, which suddenly seemed a lot cooler than that really slow archery stuff. But Don walked me out, I remember, of the Dorje Kunzong and presented to me, and it was, you know, we had no money. It was probably the highlight of my life, this pin with the Knot of Eternity on it, which is strikingly similar to the pin many of us received tonight, and said he was very proud of me. And so in conclusion, while I had no father, I had many father figures, and they taught me in the Shambhala way not to be afraid to be a fool, which was a very fortunate thing for me because I had no other choice, really. Thank you.